as well. Hello there. Good to see you, Trevor. Raw sweet fruit. Good to see you, Michelle. Hey. All right, we're live here on, anyway, not Miami exactly, but I came here to take care of some business, and we'll be here just another day or two, and then I head back to Costa Rica to be ready. We open a week from tomorrow. We actually have a retreat, yoga retreat that starts tomorrow, and if you can get there, we still have a couple spaces. We just had somebody unfortunately test positive and now can't come. And so we have a couple spaces available. If you're interested in joining us, you can still make that happen. Kind of last minute, but it's not impossible. We are opening, as I mentioned, next Saturday for fasting. We do not have any space available. We are fully booked for this coming next 4 weeks. We do have some space available, 1 or 2 spaces still started. And really, it's quite an experience being there. Perfect climate, incredible people around you, life-changing education. For many people, a real powerful spiritual opening that occurs for people. And so that's available as of the 16th of January. We are still offering a 20% discount. It won't last much longer, but it is still in place. And that means if you book now for a future stay, regardless of when you're going to be coming, doesn't matter when you want to join us, you can still, oops, sorry, Instagram, just plugging in here, I'm realizing I'm a little bit low on battery. You can still save 20% on your future stay. Okay, hope you're well. Hope you guys on Instagram are doing well, enjoying yourselves. I'm here on the beach and hoping for some warm weather. It's completely cloudy. I'm fairly busy and don't have a lot of free time, but I am staying on the beach and hoping that I'll be able to jump out there. And there's actually no waves right now anyway. I mostly enjoy going in the water where there's waves. So, all right, I've got some super chats. So I'm going to jump up here on YouTube. Start with Yari Sano. Hello, Yari. Good to see you. Namaste, Loren. How do you feel EMF level changes? Do you feel EMF level changes in the U.S.? How do athletes perform on healthy body? How do we start tolerate non-food? Mucho mori, gracias. Okay, so several questions there. Let's see if I understand. Do you feel EMF level changes in the U.S.? You're asking me if I feel an EMF level change in the U.S.? You mean because it's different now than I was in the past? Well, I haven't been in the U.S. now in a year, and more than a year, actually. First time here for a while. So I can't say that I would necessarily notice any change here. I'm not actually in downtown Miami. I'm staying away as much as I can. I'll be going through there actually today or tomorrow, but I'm not staying in the city. As I said, I'm staying on the beach. I don't actually know if there's 5G here. I don't have a 5G capable device, and so don't know whether it's available or not. I'm not seeing that. I feel okay. When I've never been anywhere where I felt bad that I could say, I felt bad at all. I felt amazing for decades now, and I have lots of energy. There are times I'm more or less tired depending on sleep. I can't say I've ever said, well, maybe I feel more tired now because of EMFs. I can't say I've noticed anything with regard to that. So it's not impossible, but I can't say I've noticed it. How do athletes perform on a healthy body? Well, how would you think? Obviously, the healthier is, the better they're going to perform, the better they're going to feel, the faster their muscle recovery is, the more of their strength they're going to be able to access, the healthier the body is. So athletes perform better across the board, the healthier they are in every way. And I've worked with many athletes, and most have seen amazing improvements in their performance as a result of getting healthier, getting the body clean, and then eating properly. That's what happens. How do we start? How do we start tolerate non-food? I guess you're asking, how is it that people begin tolerating non-food? Well, the same way we tolerate else. I mean, tolerance is a simple thing. Science understands this very well. First of all, the body can handle small amounts of toxicity. So, look at cigarettes, for instance. At first they begin to hack quite a bit. But if you keep smoking, what happens? Your body quickly begins to tolerate. Anyone here who's a smoker probably remembers it didn't feel so good at first, but the body quickly became accustomed to it. Drinking alcohol, okay, with small amounts of alcohol, the body can tolerate that. Our livers were intended, evolved, let's say, to be able to process small amounts of alcohol. Why? Because we're frugivores, we're fruit eaters, and fruit ferments in nature. And so if you're eating fruit, drink it, we're taking far more than the body can handle. But what happens over time, let's say the first time you drink alcohol, you have 4 or 5 drinks in the course of the evening, maybe you get drunk. But if you keep doing that, you begin to tolerate it. Your body becomes more and more tolerant to the quantity, and it has less impact. And so this thing is true, and there's no problem. Now, the cleaner the body is, the more it's going to react to things that don't belong. So if the average person were to eat a typical meal that they eat every day, they would probably notice nothing. They would feel fine because they tolerated completely. If you take someone with a really clean body, and I mean, I had an experience years ago, 27 or 28 years ago. I'm now in November, late November, I celebrated my 29th anniversary living on a fruit-based diet. But 27, just over 27 years ago, I had a woman living with me, she and her daughter. My girlfriend and I had a little bit of a conflict at the time. I was going for a weekend event, and fortunately that I was taking, not giving. I was there as an attendee, not a speaker. And it was useful because I left my house, and it was my house they had moved into, and I was feeling really stressed, emotional. Decided I was gonna, and I found myself craving pizza, something I hadn't eaten at that point for probably 5 or 8 years. And so, like most Jewish people, like most people on the planet, but including Jews, anyone from Africa, anyone from Asia, I was lactose intolerant. And so I had given up eating pizza years before, but I found myself craving pizza, and I decided I had a long drive from Washington, D.C. down to Norfolk, Virginia, which is 3.5, 4 hours, I think, maybe longer, plus hours. Anyway, while driving, I decided I was craving pizza and decided I was going to order when I got to the hotel room. And that's what I did. I got in, I ordered 2 large vegetarians. They had cheese. I was a vegan, but I ate cheese that time. And I didn't eat them both. I couldn't. I did eat the first one by myself, and that was all. But I could barely move for, I don't know, 3 days. I mean, I was in so much pain and discomfort. That was something I used to do, eat a pizza that size by myself regularly. Develop a tolerance, and then people feel perfectly fine eating stuff that nobody should eat, and no longer even recognize that they're doing something they shouldn't be doing at all. Okay, I hope that helps. Diane, hello there. Thank you very much for your Generous contribution, $20 contribution. Diane says, someone I know has a colostomy bag and wants to be a frugivore. She says fruit runs right through her in a couple hours. Is that a problem? Does it mean she's not absorbing it? Since her digestive system is shorter, is that okay? Yeah, well, actually, you know, I need to do a little bit of research. I don't remember now. I know what a colostomy bag is, but an ileostomy is where there's no colon, and so the ileum goes into the bag. Now, the colostomy bag, I guess, would mean the colon goes into a bag instead of exiting through the anus. And I suppose that you know, they've taken some portion of it out. I'm not sure why that happens. This is where I don't recall exactly what it signifies. So why exactly it would be so much of a shorter I mean, it should be a shorter transit time, right? The average person, you know, let's look at what happens. You know, what should happen for everybody. Hello there on Instagram. Good to see you all. It's been a while because I've had trouble connecting to Instagram lately. At a hotel here in the US and seem to be connecting okay today. But so there should be an 8 to 12 hour transit time through the system. So from eating something until elimination should be 8 to 12 hours. But the average person's transit time is 4 days long. Okay, 4 days. So it takes 8 to 12 times longer than it should. Now, obviously, that's because the average person is eating almost exclusively. People are consuming things that are, I mean, in the US, in North America, right here where I am now, 61+% of what the average person consumes is ultra processed food, right? I mean, the word food shouldn't be in there. Okay, it's not food. It's, you know, it's ultra processed garbage. It's crap, and these are substances which contain almost no fiber, virtually, you know, almost no fiber at all, through our very long digestive tract. And you know, again, to keep this in perspective, a person has a 32-foot long digestive tract. So it's more than 2.5 times longer than an animal, which is 3 to 4 times larger. Okay, why is that? That's because the carnivore needs to eliminate very quickly, because the metabolism of a high protein diet creates many toxic byproducts. And so their job is to get rid of this toxic waste as quickly as possible. Whereas we're intended to be consuming things that are almost completely non-toxic to us, fruit and soft tender leaves. And so the transit time can be much slower than the carnivores, but it should be 8 to 12 hours, not 4 days, right? The carnivore has a few hour transit time, 2 to 4 hours, I think, depending on species, something like that. And so, assuming that her small intestine is intact, okay, if that's the case, I mean, so the body is incredibly adaptive, but we absorb most of our nutrients through the small intestine, the minerals in the ascending large intestine. But, you know, I had this client who I fasted with me twice for 42 days, ultimately died. He suffered, you know, struggled for several years with stage 4 cancer, and was told he would live weeks or a month or two if he didn't get conventional treatment. They wanted him to commit to 5 years of chemotherapy. And he decided not to, because there was a 1% chance of survival at the end of that. And so he decided he'd take his chances, and he fasted. And you know, instead of living for 2 months, he wound up living for 2.5 or 3 years after that first diagnosis, as a result of fasting twice with me for 42 days. But he had no colon. And so even though there was no large intestine whatsoever, he was still getting what he needed from the food, you know, from his food while eating. The body is adaptive. So without a small intestine, the body would adapt, but it probably I mean, so virtually everybody benefits from fasting. Um, but if someone like that wanted to fast with me, I would probably have them make absolutely positively sure that they were okay with nutrient status first. In terms of simply eating an optimal diet, how could she be better off eating anything else, right? The fact that, I mean, it's going to move more quickly through her system, and again, depending on exactly what has been removed from her, it could well be that um, everything is going to move through her system more quickly, right? Because she is missing some part of the system, and so that makes it. I don't know if perhaps because of the fact. Yeah, I'm not really sure why she would have a problem. I'd be very happy to talk with her to understand better the situation to see if I could help her. But if it were me, I would still want to, regardless of what's going on with my body, I'm going to be best off when I'm eating the best diet possible for the human body, which is going to be fruit and soft, tender leafy greens. I hope that helps. I wish I knew more about the situation so I could give you perhaps a more detailed answer. But yeah, okay. I mean, but my opinion is that she would probably slow things down by maybe eating a little bit lower in terms of water content, right? I'm not sure if that would help her. I mean, we also, again, the body is amazingly adaptive. The young man without the colon, and there are many other people like this. His was removed. We would normally absorb excess water from our food through the transverse colon. So what happens if there isn't one? I don't know. I would assume that we wouldn't absorb the water. The stool would be more watery that way. And they would probably have to get water by mouth, by drinking water as opposed to by eating an optimal diet. Even with a perfect diet, it might be that there would be a problem with getting water needs met. I'm not sure. It's a good question. Okay, let me see. We have Stephanie here. Stephanie is in the house. Hello there. See you soon. Just so you know, Stephanie, I think I may have told you this before, but you may have heard me say this earlier. I'll be here until Monday. So I won't be there when you arrive, but I'll see you in just a few days. I hope you have a good trip, and I'll see you soon. And we have a couple more super chats here. Ian, 444444 says, I know sleep is important, but if you follow your diet, do you think that you need less sleep as you are taxing your body less by not having to use lots of energy digesting difficult foods? Well, so certainly the average person finds that they sleep less when they improve their diet. That's a fairly typical sleep. The average person probably gets sleep than they. Now, of course, those are people who are eating like other diurnal animals, right? Diurnal animals, you heard the term nocturnal. Nocturnal animals are animals that are awake and active at night. Bats, cats, most wild cats are active. Your house cat may sleep with you, but their actual nature is to be more active at night than during the day. And this is true with wild cats, bats. There are various species that are more active at night than they are during the day. Bats sleep all day. They fly at night. There's others. There's night birds, etc. Right? So like other diurnal animals, which are the opposite of nocturnal, these are animals that are intended to be awake during the day. I don't know about you. I wake up as soon as the sun comes in. As soon as there's light, it wakes me up to do that, right? And I mean, think about this for a second. If you're living in the tropical jungle, not in a house like I live, but in nature itself, like other species, what time would you lay down to go to sleep? Okay, laying down to rest as soon as it gets dark enough. As soon as it's difficult to see, starts to get difficult to see, or even before then, you're going to say, I'm going to find a comfortable place to rest for the next. You don't want to lay down in the dark where you can't see what's there already, right? That could be hazardous. 10, 11, 12 hours, because in the tropics, I mean, it's going to be 11 hours or more of darkness every night. Okay. So my guess is we would be resting in the dark all night long, every night. That's what we would do. We wouldn't be up at night, without artificial lighting. What are we going to be doing in the middle of the night? It just doesn't make sense that we would be really up and doing anything. I think we would be resting in the dark the entire night. And so my guess is we should be sleeping. I mean, it doesn't mean you'd have to be asleep the whole time. You'd be resting there. But I think just resting in the dark that long, I mean, that's clearly what's natural for us. So I would say, not because I don't believe it would be optimal for me. After being up, well, I mean, it's been a crazy, crazy year for us. Far more hours online with clients than I was in Costa Rica most of the year. Staff is still working full time, the full-time employees, and our taxes. Well, taxes are based on income. Our insurance costs, our mortgage costs, our utility costs don't change. The utility a little bit with fewer people, but not so much. I mean, these other costs don't change at all. The biggest costs don't really change. And so we've stayed busy. I've stayed busy by working online. It's been crazy. It's been crazy for me preparing to get here. Not as much rest as probably needed. And so last night, I had a very busy day yesterday, and got back here around 8 o'clock and thought, okay, I'll sleep now. But there were a bunch of messages waiting for me to respond. And by the time I got to bed, it was much later than that. I mean, how right now, how I could imagine, I mean, I can't imagine putting that much time into just resting. I do believe digesting an optimal diet. I think we know that most people don't live anywhere close to an optimal level of health. And I also know many people, just one more quick piece on this, but there are many people who claim they need only 2 or 3 hours of sleep. And some of you have heard this story before, but I'll give you, before they were 30, when they came to me, the younger one had just turned 30, and his older brother, I think, was 32. And the younger brother told me that the way he was so productive, the way he was able to accomplish so much, was that he slept 2 hours a night. Or this is something he'd been doing for 5 months, sleeping 2 hours per night. And I said, yeah, that's not. So they check in. They arrive on Saturday evening. They chat with everyone. They move. They go. And over the next 21 days, he got more sleep than he got in the previous 5 months. Okay, his body was clearly not okay. Now, 2 hours is extreme. That may not surprise you. But I would say there are probably a lot of people sleeping 5, 6 hours a night thinking they're okay, that would be a lot better off sleeping, or at least resting, more than that. And I learned this myself the hard way. Almost 30 years ago, was at a natural hygiene conference in Baltimore, Maryland. And I listened to a Canadian sleep research doctor who sleep most of his career, worked at a Canadian sleep institute, and had worked. But he said, he challenged the audience, right? I'm in an audience of several hundred people. And he said, if you may be needing much more sleep than you're getting. And so he said, tonight, turn off your light, close the blinds, unplug your phone. We didn't have cell phones back then. Unplug your phone. And most importantly, turn off your alarm. And most importantly, give yourself permission to sleep as long as you need to. And I was going to bed at midnight, typically 6. I wanted to get to breakfast time. I was still eating. That was about to change a few months later. It was at that conference I met the woman who woke months. That was the first time I was visiting her in Chicago. We wound up living together for a couple of years. The same woman who drove me to eat pizza, if you were here from that earlier story. But that was yet to come, another year or two down the road. In any case, I did what Ron suggested and was very surprised when I woke up the next day after 11 o'clock in the morning. So I'd been thinking I was doing perfectly fine sleeping, 5, 6 hours a night every night as I had for who knows how long. And I slept 11 hours that night. And, again, I gave myself permission. This was critically important because we have an internal alarm clock. So if I say, well, I know, yeah, but maybe that's because I expect to. Maybe that, and it's not dark in my bedroom at home. It's light out. In fact, several years ago, I was on a lecture tour in Europe, and I was speaking in Stockholm, Sweden. Stockholm is a very expensive city, and I wound up finding a pretty inexpensive until there. That my room was in the basement of the hotel, and it was an old historic building, and it had this stone structure arches that held up the building. And my room was down there with a bunch of other rooms in this space. So my walls were like, at least a foot thick. And in fact, and it didn't have a bathroom. It had a shared hall. And I knew that. I mean, I'd signed up for that. It's like, yeah, it's okay. I mean, how big a deal is that? It's like not that on a regular basis, but this was fine. At one point, I was sitting on my bed answering emails with a movie on the television, and I went to pee. And I came back and my door was shut. The TV was still on. I left it on. My door was shut. And standing in front of the door to put my key into the lock to get in, I couldn't hear anything. There was no sound. Remember, an early morning, anything to do in Stockholm from where I normally am. So calls I would normally make at 6 in the morning were at 2 in the afternoon. Okay. And so I went to bed thinking, I'll wake up when I wake up. I mean, I'll wake up in the morning. I mean, I expected to be up by 6 o'clock or so. And again, I woke up. This is years eating optimally, where I've given myself the opportunity to be in trance. And in this case, I had no sound. I could hear nothing outside of my room. And I gave myself permission to sleep. People are getting. Okay. Hope that helps you. Diane has made another $20 contribution once in a while for a gourmet raw. Don't feel it should be used regularly. I agree with you. Yeah, I can explain that on a couple of different grounds about seaweed. First of all, let's start with this one first. Let's start with the simple idea that every species, in fact, I'll demonstrate it before, right? So believe it or not, now this may not be true of cows. Wake up in a field where I live. There's a lot of dairy cattle, but the cows just live out in the fields, eating grass. Okay, not eating some feed, not in a building. This isn't industrial production. That hasn't. Cows wake up in a field of grass, surrounded by grass. Okay, it doesn't get any better than this. How could it? What's better if you're a cow? Okay, anteaters see ants and they go, "Oh, that looks delicious." Okay, so what's the point? The point is that every species is naturally attracted to its natural diet, right? There's this natural attraction. Okay, so notice how when you post a picture of fruit, people who don't have no idea what it is will say things like, "That looks delicious." Really? Well, how can you tell color? I mean, how can you tell how taste types of things? Many people think a picture of a knows what. It's not even real food, and yet people, oh, it's delicious. It's a funny thing, but that's what people say about fruit. And I mentioned color inadvertently, but when they ripen. Why not? So that we can see them, so they stand out from the green leaves. Because most plants most fruiting plants, fruits grow on plants, right? Trees and vines, shrubs, and most of them have green leaves. And so the fruit changes. Now, when it's unripe, it's green. Why? Because the plant doesn't want the fruit eaten until it's ripe. And by the way, I'm just sharing some additional information, but we're going to get there. I haven't lost sight of the question. But as fruit ripens, it changes color, so it stands out from the leaves, because the whole point of fruit is to have it be eaten by a consumer. So the seeds are deposited at a point. Okay? There's no other part of any other plant that the plant wants eaten, but it wants the fruit eaten. Okay? Now, we have natural attraction because we're frugivores. We see fruit, we go, oh my God, that looks delicious. I could show you, I've got oranges and grapefruits at citrus season here in Florida. I've eaten a bunch of blueberries in the last day and a half that I've been here. These things we're naturally attracted to. Okay, I mean, we're not, all right, so you with me so far? We're walking down the beach, and there on the sand, had this experience yesterday. There's a pile of seaweed. Does your mouth begin watering? Do you think you're okay? I think the answer, seaweed doesn't look delicious. It doesn't appeal to our senses. It smells salty. It's, you know, it looks slimy. It looks kind of disgusting. Like, you know, you probably want to not step in it. Okay. There's no real natural attraction to it. That should tell you something. That's a key piece, because we are naturally attracted to those things that we are intended to eat. I don't know if anyone's naturally attracted to this. There's a beautiful heirloom tomato, little tomato. Yummy. You know, or beautiful. Oh, see if I can just barely reach them here. Look at that. Is there anyone going to say that doesn't look delicious? That looks delicious to everybody, right? Not just to people that live on a fruit diet, as I do, and some of you do. Everyone looks at that and goes, oh my God, that looks amazing. That's our natural attraction. Okay, regardless of what you eat, you're going to be naturally attracted to ripe fruit. Now, if that were green, you know, none of us would go, yeah, we'd go, okay, well, that's not appealing when it's green, when it's unripe. Okay? Seaweed doesn't appeal to us that way. Now, it turns out that seaweed has various issues. There's issues related to seaweed. I just had a call come in, so I should probably close Skype for now. There we go. All right, so there's no natural attraction, but it turns out that seaweed has several issues with it. First of all, seaweed's algae as well, right? People think these things are superfoods in some cases. One of the reasons people eat them is for B12 content. Now, the B12 question is a question that's widely misunderstood. Most people think, most doctors, most experts say, if you're going to eat vegan or vegetarian diet, you need to supplement with B12. Here's what they fail to realize. Most people eating animal products are also, because the B12 issue has nothing to do with consuming enough B12. Now, they may, people eating animal products might have B12 in the bloodstream. B12, the bloodstream is the transportation network. That's how nutrients are moved around the body, okay, through the bloodstream. But we need the B12 in the cells. So what if you eat a animal-based diet, you've got tons of B12, same rates of actual clinical B12 deficiency problems as, okay? That's because it's not about getting enough B12 into your mouth, it's about getting it into your, so it turns out that seaweeds, as well as algae, contain B12 analogs. B12 analogs. How do I describe analogs? I don't have any keys handy. I have my, here's my key, right? That's a key. You've been in a hotel lately. That's usually what the key looks like. That's not very helpful because it doesn't go into a lock. I don't think I have my other keys with me. But you know, if you take a key, you put it into a lock, right? Um, that lock has to fit the key for it to work. In a similar way, we have B12 receptor sites in the body that can receive the B12. B12 goes into these. Shape is the key, so they fit into the receptor site, but they're not B12. They look like it, but they're not. It's like putting the wrong key into your lock. Imagine putting a key into your lock that fits in, but it's not the right key, and then the key breaks off in the lock when you try to open it. Now you can't get the right key in. When the receptor site is occupied with this analog absorber for B12, which is one of the main reasons people eat B12 with eating seaweed occasional basis. It's okay as an occasional thing. And in fact, I'm probably today or tomorrow, I'm going to go to a friend of mine runs a little raw vegan cafe. His food is delicious. It is, prepared food. It's a little heavier than I'm used to. It's heavier than the strawberries, which I'll eat. I'll eat those first. Those are ripe and ready to go. The oranges and the grapefruits, the local fruits here are amazing, and I'm looking forward to those. But I'll stop in and see my friend and have dinner. It's an occasional thing. It's okay. But eating it on a regular basis could actually make it harder for your body to get the B12 that you need. Okay, I hope that helps. All right, that's my biggest issue with it. There's probably others as well. Okay, and it looks like we have one more. Let me scroll up here and see if I didn't miss anything. I did. Oh, I missed several things. It's funny how this works. It's just so sensitive. When I go to scroll here, I just touch it, and all of a sudden, I'm way down and sometimes miss something that way. So, all right, looks like Sherry has made a $3 contribution. Sherry, I don't see a question. Sometimes the question is, thank you very much. I see I don't know what that is, but somebody is blowing kisses. Thank you very much. I hope you're well and enjoying yourself. Thank you very much for the support. I appreciate that very much. Those Love Songs has made a $35 contribution. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And she says, good morning. Keep saying she, I don't really know. Good morning, Loren. Thank you for the information and the inspiration. You are very, very welcome. I am so happy to be able to share. When I travel, it's a little bit hard. I mean, here it's an hour later, and so it interrupts a little bit more than usual. But the truth is, I have a call right after this with clients anyway, so I wasn't going to go very far. I'd probably be sitting on my balcony, taking in the sun and answering emails if I wasn't doing this and enjoying that. But I'm really happy to be here with you, and I very much appreciate the generous contribution. I've mentioned it before in passing, but I'm going to ask you if you'd be willing to send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. Okay? Thank you so much for your generous contribution. That's those Love Songs for $35. And there was one more, if I'm not mistaken. I see a lot of comments, which I apologize. I'm probably not going to get a chance to get to, given that we have 13 minutes left here. And again, if you're new, I'm not going to apologize. This is the way it works. When there's a super chat, I respond to the super chat questions first. That's just sort of the way it goes. All right, Rachel Green. Thank you, Rachel has made a contribution and said, hi, Loren. It's on tomatoes, celery, and peppers, please, with 2 X's, which I guess is, X's are what, kisses? I forget, kisses or hugs. Anyway, thanks, Rachel. I appreciate that very much. So let's start with tomatoes. The question is tomatoes, celery, and pepper. We'll start with tomatoes. In fact, we'll do tomatoes and peppers and then celery. Tomatoes and peppers are both members of the nightshade family of plants. That family also includes a plant called deadly nightshade, which the name is probably a giveaway. You may not want to eat this unless you've had enough of this life. Don't stay away from deadly nightshade. Okay, it is deadly. And eggplants. You can cook potatoes, and potatoes are safer eaten cooked than raw, because you do eliminate, as is true with anything that's toxic. I mean, cooking will sometimes break down the toxins, and that's true with potatoes. Eggplants are a fruit. Many people don't realize that, but anything that contains seeds is a fruit. I wouldn't eat them because they taste bad in their natural state. They taste very, very bitter. It's a good signal to avoid. I mean, they're inedible. Like I used to, when I was teaching raw food prep classes, I would teach different cuisines. And I once tried to make a dish with raw eggplant. I mean, I love eggplant because they're beautiful. Like the color, the purple color on the outside is amazing. But morning, and then made a bunch of fresh squeezed apple juice and soaked it in apple juice all day to try to make it sweet enough, try to make it less bitter. Still couldn't eat it. It was just inedible. So it's not something I'd recommend. But tomatoes and sweet pepper, peppers or any other sweet pepper, eaten red, yellow, purple, brown, okay, orange, I forgot to mention. Green, I'm not mentioning why not. I think Rachel already knows this, but green peppers are unripe peppers. Don't eat them. Okay, unripe fruit's very hard for the body to digest and may contain anti-nutrients depending on the fruit it is. Why? Okay, because the plant seeds into the ground and the seeds aren't viable. In other words, they won't reproduce, they won't germinate. Okay, they won't create new life until the plant is fully ripe, until the fruit is fully ripe. When the fruit is ripe, the seeds are ready to germinate. So if you eat that fruit too soon, the seeds aren't viable, and the plant wants to avoid that happening, and so it makes the fruit sometimes toxic, and usually it'll just taste bad, and that's on purpose. So avoid the green ones, but the red, yellow, and other colors are perfectly fine, just as with tomatoes. I showed you the tomato. Actually, I have a whole box of organic little grape tomatoes. Some of you probably know these. These, this is like candy for me, right? You've seen these organic grape tomatoes, like candy. I mean, you can't just eat these right out of the box. They're just delicious. Tomatoes and red peppers, and except for green ones, they have tiny amounts of this substance that makes the nightshade family plants problem for people. Now, if you're sensitive to the nightshade family, you may need to avoid tomatoes. That usually resolves, interestingly enough, with fasts of 20 minutes or more. Most of the time, I had people who had nightshade allergies or nightshade sensitivity. After fasting, they could eat tomatoes with no problem whatsoever. Okay, I love tomatoes. Eat them at least 2 or 3 times a week. When I'm traveling, it's often more. I mean, it's easier here. Like I'm meeting, as I mentioned, I'll go see my friend. I'm meeting another friend he and his wife invited me to come up, but we're gonna swing lunch at a restaurant, a raw vegan restaurant near their house, and then we'll go to the house and hang out at the beach, etc. Anyway, that'll be on Sunday. So I'm going to eat tomatoes because it's easier to get salad at these places than anything else. I don't always eat a salad at home where I've got so much amazing fruit. Many days it's faster, easier, and my body is very happy to have just fruit. When I travel, I'm usually eating a salad almost every day, and so I have specific issues with them. There's no reason not to enjoy them. Celery, on the other hand, is a vegetable, and although it is easier to digest than most vegetables, it's not something that I would consider optimal. It's something that if I get a salad, let's say one of these restaurants, I get a salad and has a little bit of celery in it, no problem. I'm going to eat it. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to keep celery. Most vegetables, we don't grow vegetables. We don't keep vegetables. We grow tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers and lettuce. And these, aside from the lettuce, that's a leafy green vegetable. All those are fruits because they contain seeds. We don't grow celery. I don't normally buy celery, but I'll tell you, it took me years who love celery. I kept celery on hand because she wanted it. I would happen, but I mean, there's no cooking on site. Okay, we're creating a community where there's no cooking, so that wouldn't be an option. Celery is okay. All right, I hope that helps, Rachel. And I see Rachel has made another contribution. This might be the last one because I'm going to have to jump off here in a minute. And she says, how often and in what quantity do you recommend adding overt fats such as avocado? Thank you for clarifying what the X meant. So I don't believe that we ever really need overt fats. You can eat overt fats if you're attracted to them. You can certainly eat them, but there's no reason that you need to. Okay, because fats are present in every single living cell. So I have shown you strawberries and tomatoes. I also have oranges and grapefruits. I think. Oh, and I have some kiwis. That's what I have here. Each of them. I mean, none of those things have any overt fat. I haven't bought an avocado since I've been here, and I don't have nuts and. But so there's no overt fats. I will be looking for durian later on. I didn't get a chance yesterday. Yesterday was my first day here. I came in the night before. I'll go look for some durian before I leave. I'll put some durian. Durian's pretty high in fat. But we don't need to eat things like avocados or nuts and seeds. Okay, you can, and I usually have avocado in my salads. When I eat a salad, there'll usually be avocado. I love avocado, and I do perfectly well with it. And most people do, as long as we don't overdo it. Why? Because although it's an overt fat, because it's a fruit, as the fruit digests, the fats are broken down into the fruit is essentially pre-digested. Okay, because the body's already broken down macronutrients. The starches become sugar, right? So the green banana is hard and tastes starchy and not sweet. And then as it ripens, it becomes more and more sweet because more starch is being converted to sugar. Okay, so in the same way, proteins are broken down to amino acids and fats are broken down to the fatty acids that they're made of. And because of that, we don't need to eat overt fat. We have very little. So it's not a problem to digest an avocado as long as it's ripe enough and you don't overdo. Now, if you overdo it, your liver still is going to say it's just too much. Okay, but there's very little work for the body to do with ripe fruit fats, including the tomatoes and the kiwis and the oranges and the grapefruits. And this is made of fat. It's ripe. There are fatty acids your body can use. We need tiny amounts of concentrated fat. Now, there are people who may, for various reasons, may have trouble getting enough calories on a raw vegan diet because they're used to eating more concentrated foods, may benefit from eating some fatty acids. And Rachel, if you were in a position where you're trying some weight, if you're working with me, I might recommend eating some avocados. But if you don't like overt fats, you don't have to eat them. Okay, there should be no need for them. Okay, I hope that helps. Again, thank you for the two contributions. It's very kind. I appreciate that very much. I hope everyone has enjoyed this. Feel free, if you haven't given it a thumbs up and you've enjoyed this or believe it could be valuable to yourself or other people, feel free to do it on Instagram like this, and feel free to share this if you believe that it could help other people. I will be back at Tanglewood just 3 days. And I will look forward to seeing you again. I'll be back live again next Friday morning from my usual location at Tanglewood. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. You are very, very welcome, Rachel, who just made a third contribution and said, kiss, kiss, XX. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I hope that's been helpful to you. I hope you've all enjoyed this. Again, feel free to share, feel free to like, and please feel free to have an amazing weekend and to take good care of yourself. I'll look forward to seeing you sometime soon. All right, take care. Bye-bye, everybody. Let's see. I'm always confused here. There we go.